everyone. Welcome to day 2 of our Connecting the Dots series. My name is Markera Featherstrong, and I am a life coach specializing in love, self-love, relationship love, friendship love, just love. It is a fascinating facet of life. And this series that I put together covers the earliest years, starting from pregnancy and birth, all the way up to adulthood, and the way what we've experienced influences our behavior and our relationships. We often do not link together the culmination of these experiences and examples in our lives to the way we behave in our relationships. Approaching ourselves in such totality begins to allow us to slough off bits we don't need, those bits that we carry that are based on trauma, regret, and sometimes that isn't even ours. Once this work begins, we can overturn negative conditioning and begin the process to reveal who we truly are. Today, I'm talking with James McKinney. Welcome to Connecting the Dots. How are you?
I'm good.
James is a former teacher for Orlando's Orange County Schools District. He has worked in almost every capacity of the educational system, including special needs and gifted children. This has given him a broad perspective on children's education and their behavior. But first, let me ask you what led you into education?
Well, I had a bachelor's degree in history, and I had not done anything with it. And I in the Pathfinders organization. Just so let me put this thing to use. And once I had moved to Florida in 2013, it kind of cemented my desire to step into the classroom.
Oh, that's cool. This can be such a broad area of discussion because it's a time when hormones are surging, crushes are forming, stomachs are fluttering, and the opposite sex is now viewed with starry eyes. But I think it's a key area to cover because it's that sort of pre-dating phase that lets kids begin to realize, to really act out what they've seen around them the most, which is also mixed in with the search for who they are and where they fit in. It's a hectic time. So I was asking, why do you feel that it's important to be aware of the influences from what we've seen growing up on how we navigate as adults in relationships?
Yeah, I was mentioning, the kids who didn't have the benefit of a male presence at home, which I sometimes forget. For some kids, very much seen as a privilege. But we have to be aware of these things as educators, as parents, as the adults in situations that children are a part of, because they need us to have that understanding for them in order to help them to navigate, especially the time that we speak of, because I taught the entire gamut of teaching, from special needs all the way up to 7th grade. And I can tell you 7th grade was one of the worst times because that is where the kids were like 12, 13, because, in the American system, it's a bit different. And I mean, it would just be so difficult for them because their hormones were just going crazy, and it all depended on who they had at home to help them navigate, or even was just having the conversations with them, saying, this is what your body's going to feel. This is how you're going to begin to see girls, or this is how you're begin to see boys, or, this is just how you're going to feel when you have a crush, because, I mean, let's face it, we do have some kids that don't have crushes on the opposite sex, but they all need help navigating these different things that are coming. This is also a time for young girls when they're getting their period. This is a time for young boys. They may start to experience wet dreams, and it can lead to behaviors that often show up in the classroom. Even when, like you said, you were speaking about crushes. I've watched children who've been dejected by their crush. All of a sudden, they went from quiet, able to operate in class, to just not focused, disruptive, all sorts of things, because they don't know where to place the feelings or those emotions. And I was saying earlier that often I found I would have a lot of up and down behavior from the young male.
You went low. I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me? Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, I was saying that sometimes the children who didn't have a male presence at home, they often acted out looking for the attention of, sometimes for a lot of them, the first male that they had this type of one-on-one interaction with, even though it's not really one-on-one and I'm in there with a bunch of kids, but at the end of the day, they can have my attention. It's not like there may be a principal or, I mean, yes, they're the PE teacher, but even with PE, you're running up and down, you're moving around. But in a classroom setting, it's just you, the students, the classwork, you're talking back and forth with them, you're giving instruction, you're creating, the classroom environment. And many of them I found, because they're looking for that attention, and again, the hormones are raging, they will act out. So the awareness of these things is extremely important. Now, how can we be aware? A lot of times I say we have to go back in our memories and remember what it felt like. Oftentimes I find myself in front of the class and I'd be teaching and I'd watch someone whispering in class, doing something that they maybe shouldn't be doing. And I would let it slide just because it wasn't disruptive, because I remember what it was like to be that age. I knew what it felt like when a teacher called you out for something that was so minute, but it was just at that day getting on their nerves. Now, granted, teachers are human, but at the end of the day, now that I was in the position of the teacher, because I know teachers are human, because I know also students are human, I was able to say, I'll let that slide. It's not disrupting the class. They're not doing anything crazy. I let it live.
That's cool, because doesn't it make you go back to it just made me think back to English class.
Yeah.
With that particular English teacher who didn't just teach, he talked to us about life things.
Oh, yes.
And I could remember some people didn't like that and thought it was just totally unnecessary, but I could remember a lot of things he said or just being heard or understood because he seemed to be thinking beyond the classroom.
Right. It's funny the time we grew up in, because we were the generation, I feel, that were the very last of coming up where everything was just hardcore instruction. Either you get it or you don't. And you were beginning to see the emergence of teachers that understood we have to prepare these kids for life. Because oftentimes many people, I mean, we've heard it growing up all the time. There's book smart and then there's quote unquote street smart. Or, yeah, he got plenty book smarts, but he don't have no common sense. And a lot of times you don't recognize how you were taught, what teachers you were blessed or not so blessed to have affected the development of your learning processes. And in many, many, many instances, the way we learn can affect our confidence. It can affect the way we feel about ourselves. Because I know for me, math was a struggle, but the sciences, literature, the arts were not. So I did have my strengths, but there are some children who will struggle across the gamut with the whole educational system. And that will affect every single aspect of their lives, because somehow, and even if we don't say it, there's this unspoken rule that how you're performing in school is connected to your self-worth, connected to your worth as a person, as a human being. And a lot of children never lose that. So they go into adulthood with this feeling of inadequacy that some go, I would say most grow up and begin to understand, it was just that teacher, or it was just that I was struggling in school. It was just hard for me. But some never overcome that. A large amount. I'm at 10%, by the way. My phone is. So it leaves a lot to be. One second. Yes, Judah. Okay, so my baby has come in to bother me. He wants to read a book.
It's so funny because my next question was going to ask you, how does your teaching experience affect the way you parent now?
It gives me a lot more patience. I will say that. Having children and having taught, it prepares you for the different phases that you are going to see. Because again, I taught elementary, special needs, Title I school, which is like, to put it for Bahamians to understand, like the worst government school. Like imagine the worst government school where they ain't getting no funding. They ain't even sending good teachers there, and he just ran off. And all these different really bad things, which means they probably need to go follow him because he's not paying attention. But yeah, so imagine the worst schools, that's a Title I, all the way up to teaching 7th grade high school students that were gifted. And just because children are gifted doesn't mean gifted doesn't come with behaviors. So it's given me a very broad spectrum of what I can expect. Now with my little ones, it's also shown me be mindful what you say to children. They do not forget it. I had a 7th grader, and I remember he was doing very well. I remember at the end of the year, I told him, I said, you earned an A in my class, and I'm very proud of you. And he said, Mr. McKinney, I'm surprised I got an A. I said, why? You've been giving me good work all year. He said, yeah, but my teacher told me I wouldn't be nothing. I said, what do you mean, your teacher? And he spoke about when he was in kindergarten, he's maybe 5 years old. He was just a rambunctious kid. And the teacher said, I'll be surprised if he doesn't end up in jail. And that was something she repeated often. So here's the 7th grader. He was one of the better students, one of the top athletes. He has all this going, but in the back of his mind, he's still hearing that. So it always reminded me, be careful of what you say, be careful of the words you use and how you pour into your children. Okay, I'd love to continue, but I have a demanding little one, so I will have to
go.
Yes.
Hi.
All right, so Judah, say hello. Hello. Okay. So we're ready to read a book. So again, it is about being mindful, and just like I'm doing now, doing your best to put them first.
Yes.
To put their needs first, and sometimes think back to what it was you needed, because a lot of times there's a lot of you in your children. So think about what you needed. Yes, we will read it. Think about what you wanted, what you desired, and give it to them. At the same time, see who they are, because they're little individuals, and do your best to nurture versus just educate. That's the best I got.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And
All right.
I'll let you go so that, you can continue to put these little ones first.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. So thank you for joining us. And tomorrow I will be chatting with Stanya Davis, who's a life coach and a life coach trainer. See you tomorrow.